COVID-19, now it's a blackout. And you're telling people progress. Cost of living gone up 100%, yet you give public servant less. Mr. President, listen to the people. Search your soul and you will confess. I want you try surviving on the public base, then you're gonna know but stress. Cause I done fed up. He done fed up. She done fed up. Fed up. The people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup. Look how evil set up. The people fed up. They don't drive no play with the citizens. They may want the people speak out. Freedom of speech done down inside the gutter. Knock off when you open your mouth. Discrimination in entertainment. And you're talking about one guy, you know. When the Ministry of Culture keep the big shows, man sets and girls and banner. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup. Look how evil set up. The people fed up. Every picture you take, when you come into me, your hand is smile about corruption inside every sector. Come to send you, I investigate efficiency by back to Barrett and Sue, cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up.
Hey, good night. Everybody's fed up. He's fed up. That song, corruption inside the cup, corruption galore, murders, corruption, whether it's money laundering, whether it's gold smuggling, all these manner of things happening. But yet those vagabonds in the PPP regime, oh yes, they're vagabonds. So many people have been killed, they've been slaughtered, they've been murdered, they've been assassinated. And then you wonder, how is it that these vagabonds are still allowed to get away with what they are getting away with in Guyana? And then they're finding they're using your tax dollars, they're using the billions of dollars they're getting from the oil revenue and from all revenues that they're getting to torture you, to persecute you, to build up political cases against you. And well, guess what? Tonight, my name is Mark Benchop again. But tonight we will be dealing with some of those issues that individuals are faced with, whether they're being persecuted or whatever the case may be. But all is not well in Guyana. Hey, speaking of all is not well in Guyana, guess what? Guess what for a moment? Guess what? Robeson Ben, that vagabond, that conniving idiot of a human being. Guess what he is saying? Anybody who takes a position, can you believe those idiots? Anyone who takes a position and appears that they are supporting Venezuela, they are going to be charged with treason. Just imagine that little puppet, that little scum of a human being, Robeson Ben, is who they think listening to their silly threats. But Robeson Ben, this as they would say in Guyana, this stinker. Just imagine this guy sits there as a minister of home affairs. Look at him, he's on the ground. He is on the ground, lying there on the ground where people pee-pee, wee-wee, urinate, whatever you want to say. Look at him. And it's saying that anyone who is on the side of Venezuela, I don't know who the heck would be on the side of Venezuela anyway, other than all those, a lot of those, not just a couple, Venezuelans that were let in the country by Jagdeo and Irfan Ali and those guys. Those are the ones who are pro-Venezuelan. Remember, a couple of them met with Jagdeo and then they ran out. One of them ran out to the airport and took pictures and said, Guyana is all of Guyana is Venezuela. It is Jagdeo who met those people. It is the PPP regime, those guys, they go to maybe Baroom Bar or strip clubs in Guyana and they go and they pay money and they see the baila, me gusta baila, la kikaracha, spin around, y'all, baila. So, You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying all Venezuelan girls do that. Neither am I saying all Venezuelan girls go to Baroom Bar or Red Dragon. Those are strip clubs in Guyana for those who. I'm not saying that at all, and I wouldn't say that to disrespect Venezuelan women. A lot of them are fleeing Venezuela for obvious reasons because Venezuela has a madman in power. Venezuela has a murderous dictator in power. And those are the individuals, Jack Dale and Irfan, they love to embrace, they love to go in bed with, politically speaking. We see what they do in Iran. We see what they do in those other countries. They embrace those individuals. So don't think for a moment that Jack Day and Irfan Ali and those scums in the PVP regime, don't think that they play fair. Don't think that they're fair at all. Our executive producer just finally got back in touch with us to say Thomas Anderson is with us tonight. Tom Anderson, thank you to our executive producer, because we've gone up now. We no longer deal with Lemon. Lemon is just at the level, we leave Lemon at that level. We are dealing with executive producers right now, right here on 107. I'm so glad that our executive producer, invisible executive producer, was able to get in touch with you. Good night. How are you, sir?
Hey, good night, everyone. I'm great, man. Lots to talk about tonight. Wild things going on, Mark. Wild things going on, man.
Thank you so much for reminding us. Wild things in Guyana, wild things around the world, but we will zoom in on Guyana. And let me say to all of you, if you haven't shared the link as yet, kindly share the link. If you don't share the link, we're going to call my friend out in Linden who plugs out, right? Good night to Conan, who plugs out, and you guys share the link. Janet Elias, don't come and call for backup and them thing. Tonight is not a night. Think. And usually when we're on, make sure you tell your friend, turn your notifications on, guys. Bench Up Radio page. Share the link and invite your friends and relatives wherever they are. Let them. I like your cup, your mug, Tom. We see it. It says, "I love you, Dad," or something like that. It's a Father's Day gift, right, Tom?
That's right.
We Guyanese can read. Not all of us went to IFLAT. Not all of us went to IFLAT University. Not all of us.
That's what it is.
Let's just wait until they share the link. If they don't share the link, we have nothing to do, nothing to say. I bet you got that mug as a gift from your one of your kids, or all of them probably.
Yes, they got it for me Father's Day. Yeah. We were, I think, in Orlando, Disney World. They got it for me there.
Oh, yeah. Your favorite Disney World, indeed. Good night again to all of you. Wayne Caesar, good night to you. Somebody check if Wayne Caesar helped with sharing the link. We got to get on Wayne's case, too. Good night to Wayne. Claude Biram, all of you. Everybody's saying good night to Wayne. Good night to Thomas Anderson with us. ProGen, the people in Canada are watching us. They have their lights on. They're watching us too from all around the world. Share the link indeed. But Tom, before that, let me just say, hey, and for those who already shared the link, thank you so much. And we're going to start off with this situation. It's Ridgewood Correctional Facility and Ridge Center, Ridgewood indeed. For those of you who get a hint already, you know what we're going to be discussing at least this half of the program. This place is where Melissa Atwell, known as Melly Mel, according to information, mind you, and let me just say, I'm going to be cautious about this. According to information, this is where she is. According to our research, according to our source, this is where she is. She has not been sent back to Guyana. And those who are wishing that she be sent back, or those who are wishing that she is on a plane back to Guyana and she's here, look, we do not deal with rumors on this program. We do not. And we are not going to speculate on things we do not know about. We are just going to say, according to information and our source, it's pretty solid that Melly Mel has not been sent back to Guyana. That's the intent. placed here at this facility, Richwood Correctional Center. Those of you who don't know of it, it's a little piece of Richwood Correctional Center where Melissa Atwell, known as Melly Mel, is currently at, according to a source. And now we will get to this part here, so it gives you guys an idea as to where she is currently.
New at 6, another former corrections officer pleads guilty to covering up assaults of inmates at Richwood. Quintel Credit pleading guilty for his role in a conspiracy and inmates, admitting to conspiring with other officers to make false statements. October 30th of 2016, Credit and other officers punished 5 inmates by spraying a chemical in their faces and eyes while those inmates were handcuffed, compliant, kneeling on the floor, and posing no physical threat. Parker admitted that he and other officers filed false reports. Credit could get 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. He will be sentenced in May.
All right, so that is where Melly Mel currently, according to information, according to source, I will just give you a peek as to what it's like. We removed that little idiot Robeson Ben away from there. This is what it's like in that center where, according to source, several sources, Melissa Atwell, known as Melly Mel, is currently being kept, and we will get into that shortly. Just to give you a peek as to where it is as being reported, where she's currently being held. This is the condition. As of a couple of years ago, the conditions through COVID-19 was a hell of a place, and this is another report. Immigrant kills himself in ICE jail in Richwood. A Cuban man who legally sought asylum, died by apparent suicide. And so I'm giving you guys a big quick snap as to what the area looks like, where according to what we are told, that Melissa Atwell, also known as Melly Mel, is currently being kept. And as a result of that, we are hearing that the corrupt PPP regime has requested her to be sent back to Guyana. She has, according to a source, been picked up, being detained in that Richwood facility. We have some more information that we will talk about probably later down in the program. And so keep her in your prayers. Tom Anderson, welcome back to Straight Up. We really appreciate the fact that you're always here. I know you've been reading and following this story. Let's get your take right off the bat, please. What's happening from your neck of the wood?
Yeah, so first of all, good night, everybody. Thanks for having me on once again. So I really want to just stick to the facts, because there's so much out there now where there's just so much innuendo, so many rumors. It's hard to know what's really going on, right? But the little that we do know, it points to something similar to some type of a international incident maybe occurring here, where you have who basically using her First Amendment rights in the United States, which everyone's allowed to use no matter what your immigration status is, by the way. You have the speech. And so someone freedom looks like they are being punished by a foreign government, Guyana. And part of that punishment is working with our government to get her removed out of the United States and brought back to Guyana to face charges. Now, the issue that I have with all of this, and anyone who's paying attention to this internationally and looking at it and wondering, well, what's going on here? Well, there's a big issue, and it's this. Guyana has been a very corrupt country. The government itself has members of the government who have been sanctioned for smuggling gold. You've got high-level individuals in the private sector who have been sanctioned. And what's interesting is that this government has gone after this young woman, this woman, in a way so harshly compared to the other stuff that's happening in the country, where people are being sanctioned, where people within their own government have been sanctioned by our government, and they are still apparently receiving a salary. They're still being taken care of, whereas we have throwing everything they can at her, is what it seems. Now, we don't know for sure if the government of Guyana has singled her out, but we do know that the government has brought charges against her. The Attorney General of Guyana has. So it looks like this could be a political situation. We just don't know. What's interesting is this: because of the sanctions that have happened in the country and because of the back and forth between the Mohammeds and Jack Deo, it would seem this Atwell has been caught in the middle of this. So maybe what they're trying to do is get information from her to further collapse the Mohammed organization. I'm not sure, but that could be the case. If that's the case, then there will be charges coming up on her in the United States, here in the United States. So this is a very serious situation. It could be that serious for her, or it could be a big situation for our government here and the government of Guyana, in that someone who's was exercising their First Amendment free rights to speak is being persecuted, okay, and being brought down on trumped up charges is what it appears. The reason why I say this, the reason why I say it looks up right now who have been sanctioned by our government walk freely every day. They walk freely every day, even though our government has sanctioned them and said, we have proof that these guys have taken gold out of the country and not paid the proper taxes. And so we have proof of people who have violated the law, violated international law. They have been sanctioned by our government and they walk freely throughout the country today as we speak. Whereas you have a woman here who is not super wealthy, she is not super powerful, but all of a sudden you've got major governments in this world going after her. That's a big deal. If this could become a really big situation on the world stage, I don't know. But I will say this: when you have the PPP, which is known to do things that are sort of below the belt, they're known to use tactics that are more third world. If that's what they're doing with this, then they're bringing a third world tactic to a premier first world stage. And it's not going to end well for them. Okay. So I hope that's not what's going on here, but there are signs to point towards that. And the media here should get ready to start covering this story because this could turn really bad really quick.
Really bad, really quick. Tom Anderson giving his pieces opinion there on the matter. And this is where I just say we're discussing. Nobody knows for sure what's going on. The fact, though, Tom, that Melly Mel, according to information, again, is currently being held at this correctional center, a very notorious correctional center, a center that has been, officers have been accused of racism. There has been killings, there have been beatings. It's not easy here. And this basically appears to be the dumping ground, Tom, of individuals whom the U.S. government says it's time to go back, unless a judge says otherwise. If, in my opinion, there was something big and sinister that happened in the U.S., then they would not have sent her back there at that facility. They would say, hey, we need to talk to you to institute charges against you. The fact that it has not happened leads me to believe that the corrupt PPP regime has sent a request to have her extradited back to Guyana, and some friend they may have in the Trump administration might be saying, okay, that is what you want. Okay, we are going to give you guys what you want. Do you read it that way too, Tom?
It's possible. It could be that. But I think it may be more sinister. It could be that the PPP has put together enough evidence to get her in something that maybe the Mohammeds are involved or something else where there's U.S. sanctions involved. If they've been able to put together evidence and it says, hey, she's a part of the group that's, doing things like smuggling gold out of the country, trouble, and she's going to end up being deported. Right? And to face that. So we don't know what it is that the government of Guyana has said, but I have to believe that it's something along the lines. It has to be something really serious, because when you have a situation where we're reporting someone who has a social media platform, who's doing the United States. And this is what people should understand in the United States who see people in Europe or other. The thing with the media isn't that. Okay, there isn't a media infrastructure in Guyana that's recognizable to Western people who are used to Western media. You just wouldn't recognize it. And so you have people like her, Melly Mel, right? Who she's a news person for the people of Guyana. Even though she's diaspora, she is within their media apparatus, right? And it's something that most of us really wouldn't recognize because the country, and I've said this over and over again, the country, all parties have to put a bigger effort into establishing a better media infrastructure in the country so that people know what's going on. So because of that, since there isn't this really robust, redundant media infrastructure there, a lot of the information that people are getting is rumor, is innuendo. And then what you have are people like herself who she was trying to basically create a media personality, someone that was like a government watchdog type on her own. Really, there's nothing in Guyana to plug into. And so while she's doing that, she's doing a really good job. She had a really good following, right? She has a great following. So she's doing that. And then all of a sudden she's being deported. She's being targeted and being deported. And there's all this controversy around it. Well, it's saying to me that this has to be something really big, because if it's something small, for them to go through all of this for something little and to create a situation where you don't take those types of risks of looking like abusers of human rights and abusers of women's rights, because it could be, by the way, in Guyana, it's a nation that abuses the rights of women. This is not a nation that respects women overall as a culture. And I'm not saying this is bad. What I'm saying is, for Western standards, it is not like what we do with women here. Okay, it is different. And so the rights for women are not the same in Guyana, and that needs to change. It needs to change badly, right? But with that in mind, it hasn't changed. And so we have a situation where this could become a really bad international incident. I hope that it does not become that, but it could become that. And so what I'm thinking is whatever the PPP are cooking up, it has to be something really serious. It has to be something where she's done something really bad. That's the only thing now.
Absolutely. And speculations, we were don't know why, to other than the fact that she has been exposing the corrupt PPP regime, which is a good thing. It's not bad. Healthy for democracy, because despotic governments, corrupt governments, such as the PPP regime, they need to be exposed. We'll get back to that shortly. But Tom Anderson, you mentioned the fact that there could be some sort of connection, between maybe the Mohammeds and her, but we don't know. It's just trying to fix this puzzle. But if the PPP wrote to them, the U.S. administration, about allegations that she's connected to the Mohammeds, and we're just saying if that case, then look at what the senior Mohammed is saying about PPP regime. Were by the U.S. administration, they were sanctioned that they continue to do business with the corrupt PPP regime. They continue to do business with Jagdale. They continue to do business with Irfan Ali. They have given them money. The Irfan Ali administration, according to the Mohammed, contracts and all sorts of things. Why not sanction the government of Guyana, Tom? Why go after a small fish, so to speak, fry, compare to the billions of dollars of deals that they've been awarding the Mohammeds who have been sanctioned now? What's going on, Tom?
Well, that's what I'm wondering, right? Because she's not a big fish. She's not a billionaire. She's not someone who controls like a huge television station. That's not who she is, right? This amount of government to be used to when you have other people now who have been sanctioned by our government and who continue to run whatever they want. It's really strange, really, really sort of. I think that's the question the PPP have to answer here for the international community is, okay, why is it that this person, Melly Mel, why is it that she's so important to go after when there are other people that we know on record have been doing really bad things and they walk around freely? What's going on there? Why is that happening? That's the question
That's
that
the
needs to
big
be
question.
answered.
Thank you so much, Tom. That's the big question indeed. Melly Mel, Melissa Atwell, also known as Melly Mel, is, according to a source, is currently at this Richwood Correctional Center, awaiting possibly to be seen by a judge, because they cannot just pick her up and just dump her back to Guyana just like that. There is due process. There's a legal way to do this, and she's entitled to that due process. She's entitled to be seen by a judge. Not sure whether that judge is going to be available to see her over the weekend, but as of now, I hope her saying that her life is in danger were she to be sent back to Guyana. Her life is in danger were she to be sent back to Guyana. And for obvious reasons, Tom, we all know that Jack Jael, the quote unquote vice president, who's also a former president of Guyana, and other high officials of the PPP have been going after her. How safe is Melly Mel under those circumstances?
Well, anyone who speaks to what is going on in Guyana as far as political, anyone who does that and has a platform, their lives are in danger, because this, especially the PPP, they go after everybody no matter where they are. It doesn't matter, and they don't want to hear any excuses. This is just how they roll. This is how they've always been operating, especially under Jack Dale. They want to rule with an iron fist, and they want to prove to everyone, even if you're in, they can go and get you, right? This is what they're proud of this, and they let it be known. So we don't have to pussyfoot around on this one. Everyone knows, if you know anything about Guyana and you know anything about the PPP, everyone knows those guys mean business any way, shape, or form. Then everyone knows this. And so she has not been in a safe position. As a matter of fact, you could see with some of her posts more recently, they became increasingly more desperate, where she was posting to the U.S. Embassy and to the Homeland Security, like different corruption things. And it seemed like every day she had something more that she needed to tell. It seemed like she was pleading for help for about a week or two now, trying to get some type of assistance, but there is none. It's with the PPP. They're going to try to do whatever they can to silence their opponents. And what they're going to tell the rest of the world is these people are troublemakers. They're going to make it so we can't get access to the oil. So you need to let us do what we need to do here at home. But that's just not the case. The people of Guyana are not a violent people. They are a loving people. This is not a population that you have to rule over with an iron case. And so that's where I believe they're making a mistake, because you can do that when you're a third world country and no one's paying attention. But now that they're on the world stage, and I believe the way they're dealing with this situation with Ms. Atwell, we don't know all of the facts. She could be in a situation, in a legal problem. She could be connected to something that we don't know about. So we don't know. But if this is related to her work on uncovering government specific, then they're a mistake going after her, because that's not how you operate in a world where you're at the table with the top of the world, where you're actually out here speaking to the leaders of the world and doing business deals with them. You cannot be doing that and then on the side persecuting people for telling their truth of what they're seeing that's happening inside the country.
Well said, Tom. And those in America, those politicians, some of implicit because of some sort of deal in Guyana, some sort of business deal, maybe. That is not how democracy rolls. And if in fact Melly Mel is being, they're attempting to send her back to political views because of highlighting and exposing the corrupt PPP regime, then that doesn't augur well for democracy. And this is America. However, mind you, due process. They cannot just buy a plane ticket for her and dump her in a plane and send her back to Guyana. Just is due process. And Melissa Atwell actually is entitled to due process, whether she is a green card holder or not. I don't know, and I'm not going to give my mouth liberty as to whether she has applied for asylum, whether she is the holder of a green card, a conditional green card, or whatever. I don't know, and neither am I going to speculate on that. But one of the things, though, that I hope her lawyer is or lawyers will do is to say to the correctional officers, the immigration officers at that facility, to Guyana, her life is going to be in danger. And that is so factual. They will kill, and I'm not saying this to be dramatic or any way, shape, or form. We all know the sort of persons in the PPP regime from experience. They will execute her. Simple as that. They will find ways to get her killed. And so she is not safe. I hope her lawyers will argue that once she appears in front of a judge at that facility, they will appear in front of a judge via Zoom. And so the lawyer should start right now. They should seek, if they haven't yet sought asylum, right now. There are several things that is going in her favor. According to information, she's married to a U.S. citizen. And the question is, has she broken any immigration law? The other question is there an attempt to deport her because of a request by the PPP regime in what is said to be trumped up charges against her? Now, aren't you going to review those allegations leveled against her for a court to be able to determine whether they are legitimate charges, whether the evidence substantiate whatever the charges or allegations are? Or are you going to just pick somebody up and dump them in immigration facility waiting for that person to be deported? That is not what America is about. That is not what democracy entails. And in America, we expect better from those who are in high offices. If in fact there's no serious allegations leveled against Melissa Atwell, then her current incarceration with the intention to deport her is being persecuted. Now, before we get back to Mr. Tom Anderson, let us get to a video that was done by no other than the Vice President of the United States of America.
Laura, a green card holder, even if I might like that green card holder, doesn't have an indefinite right to be in the United States of America. And different rights from people who have green cards, from people who have student visas. And so my attitude on this is not fundamentally about free speech. And to me, yes, it's about national security, but it's also more importantly about who do we as an American public decide gets to join our national community. And if the Secretary of State and the President decide this person shouldn't be in America and they have no legal.
Do you see more such deportations happening?
I think we'll certainly see some people who get deported on student visas if we determine that it's not in the best interest of the United States to have them in our country. So yeah, I don't know how high that number is going to be, but you're going to see more people.
Tom Anderson there, that's the Vice President of the United States of America. There is due process. Now, with a student visa, there are laws, immigration laws, and once you come here on such a visa, then you're entitled to due process. And then if you violate, you cannot just say, I'm going to snatch back that student visa from you. Unless you violate the terms, the conditions of that visa, then it becomes, it gets into question of taking back or revoking that visa. But you cannot just say, well, I don't like that individual because of the way they look or because of the way they practice their culture. It is not sufficient grounds to revoke someone's visa. As it pertains to a green card holder, there's certain rules and regulations and their due process. For example, if someone comes through the airport and the officers say, hey, wait a minute, what's happening? You spend more time outside than inside. They give you a document to voluntarily sign that document to voluntarily give up your green card. Now, if you say you do not want to do it, then you have to undergo what is called due process. If in Melly Mel's case, I don't know, I'm not going to give my mouth liberty as to whether she's the holder of a green card or she has sought asylum. I don't know. And she and I have spoken on numerous occasions, but whatever it is remains confidential. But I don't know whether she's the holder of a green card. Now, even if she's the holder of a green card, she's entitled to due process. Tom, you heard the Vice President of the United States of America. Let's get your take, please. I've been talking a little too much. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think Melly Mel falls more underneath like someone who can get asylum, right? To me, because she's here, whether she's here legally or not, she's in a position where the ruling party of her home nation has made it pretty clear in multiple ways that they are very mad at her. And these are the type of people that when they're mad at you, they do things like harm your life. They hurt your family. They throw you in jail on trumped up charges. I mean, all these things that they do, and they have a history of this. So it's not like you can sit back and say, oh no, they have a history of having a great government. Well, look at how they've been ranked in corruption. Play is one of the most corrupt governments, especially under the PPP, a very corrupt government. And so when you have a situation with that much corruption, when you have a situation where where government officials are being sanctioned for doing things like smuggling gold, when you have a situation where the country itself is allowing the Iranians to use Guyana ship flags to be able to smuggle oil to get around sanctions. When you've got a regime like that in place, right, and they are making it clear they're mad at a person who's a citizen of their nation who lives, right, probably can look for some type of asylum. And no matter how you want to cut it, no matter what our vice president thinks, when innocent people are persecuted for political purposes, like what appears to be happening to Miss Atwell, they have a right to ask our court system for asylum. They have a right to ask our government for asylum, because if they were to be forced back to their home country, something really bad could happen to them. Okay. And I think everyone knows, if you know about Guyana and you know about her situation, Ms. Atwell's situation, something very bad could happen to her. It's more than likely something really bad will happen to her if she goes back there. So she's someone who may want to look for some type of amnesty, because I think she could get it.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. That's why I've said in the beginning that whoever her lawyer or lawyers are, top on the agenda is to fight it from a human rights standpoint, and the fact that she's being persecuted as a result of her political views and exposing corruption. That's exactly what she's been doing for the most part, exposing corruption. And those big boys and big girls in Guyana do not out of that. They say, well, look, we are going to get you. We're going to find ways and means to get you. And if that is being played out over in the United States of America, where there's no credible evidence other than what the PPP regime is saying, that they need her back there in Guyana because they have some arrest warrant for her, allegation of extortions, and so forth and so on. then that sort of evidence need to be presented for the most part in a court so that a judge can make that decision whether there is preponderance of evidence packed up or stocked up against her in order for her to be sent back. There's a process. And if there is what is called an extradition request, I'm not sure if there is any, but if the government of Guyana has an extradition request for Miss Atwell, then that extradition request needs to go through the legal process, presented to the relevant authorities in the US, and it must be heard via a court. You guys remember the case of Marcus Bistram, who was wanted back in Guyana for murder up somewhere out there under quarantine. There was due process. They presented the extradition request in the court or to the relevant authority in the US. He was seen by a judge. Of course, he was in hiding. Unlike Melissa Atwell, she was not in hiding. Homeland Security officers knew where to find her. She volunteered, she cooperated in every way, shape, and form. And as a result of that, we're now hearing, mind you, according to several sources, she is currently being housed at the Richwood Correctional Center, awaiting deportation order. Well, according to news, she has been ordered the US, but she has to be heard by a judge. A judge has the final say whether she is going to be sent packing or not. The PBP is question, Tom, is as long as they have credible evidence that Miss Atwell, if she is sent back to Guyana, she will be executed. Her life is in danger. She has been talking that all along. And with the evidence that the PPP, they're masters at going after their critics. They are masters at having under their regimes critics assassinated. They're masters of incarcerating critics and all manner of things. They're notorious at these things. And lawyers are. Do you see a judge, having listened to of the evidence of this individual Atwell being unsafe, were she to be sent back to Guyana? Do you see the court ruling in favor of sending her back to Guyana?
Well, she has a good chance to get some type of asylum because of what's happening in Guyana and what's happened in the past. Where she runs into any difficulty is if there's evidence that she's dealing with people who are sanctioned by our government. If that's the case, then all bets are off. So situation, we don't know how serious it is, right? But if this is simply something where it's some type of immigration issue and the government of Guyana is claiming that they want her because she's a criminal at large, well, that shouldn't be believed because there are so many criminals at large inside of Guyana right now that no one ever says anything to them. They never get charged with anything. They never go to jail. Okay. And these are real criminals who are doing really bad things. So there's no way that if they allow that type of criminality to be happening in the shores of Guyana, that they're going to spend this much time and effort to go after someone who doesn't even live in the country. So to me, I think she's in line for some type of amnesty. I think that anyone who looks at her situation, any judge can see that sending her back to Guyana, she risks her health and her life. The nation is not fair to women. They just aren't. And, you know, with her being a critic and they've proven time and again to physically hurt critics of any kind, her being a critic and her being basically a member of the media that covers Guyana. Okay, that's what she is. Even though there isn't a real infrastructure where people can point to it and say, oh, yeah, she's a reporter for such and such. That infrastructure doesn't exist. But she is a member of the media that covers what's going on in Guyana. So that's another layer here that's very important for a judge to hear. So we will see. Now, like I say, the big question is, what is she facing? Is she being accused of working with people who are on sanctions? If she is, then it's going to be a hard, no matter what she says, the judge will probably not side with her, right? But if that's not the case, if it's anything less than that, if it's some type of immigration thing, then, you know, and from what we understand, she's married to a U.S. citizen. So there's a lot of questions. We're not sure what will happen, but I will say that, she's in a position to get some type of amnesty, looking at the history of the PPP and how they deal with their critics.
And the other way to look at it too, that if in fact there's an extradition warrant that was presented by the route for that is detention center. It is a court that will have to deal with that. You don't get an extradition warrant or a complaint government that they want a particular individual who is causing problems back in her home country. In the case with Miss Atwell, now according to the PPP, it's problem when people expose corruption and expose them and their dirty works. It becomes problematic for them. Now, if it is indeed an extradition warrant, then sending her to an immigration detention center without due process is not the way to go. That is just not how extradition warrants are presented. That is not how it is handled. I just gave an example of Marcus Bisram. Went through, they arrested him. That little guy was running and ducking and hiding. And they caught up with him. They arrested him. They locked him up, of course, took him before a court. The judge was able to hear the case, the extradition request. They were met with the evidence. And as long as the evidence is credible, then the extradition warrant was approved. And Marcus Bisram went back to Guyana. Now, this is not what we're hearing and seeing about Melissa Atwell. All we heard is that she was detained, and the next we heard is that she is currently, according to source, at this Richwood Correctional Center awaiting deportation back to Guyana. Now, this to me is somewhat strange. And you mentioned, Tom, then something isn't adding up. Hence, I don't want to speculate much on this program and on that matter. But something isn't adding up, Mr. Tom Anderson. We are on the same page.
Exactly.
Something is adding up.
Yeah, something's not adding up. And so I'm just hoping that this isn't some kind of stunt by the PPP, because, when this can turn into a really bad international incident very, very fast. And it can alter the relationship between our countries in ways that maybe not be able to be mended. And in the situation that everyone's looking at now, with Venezuela being as aggressive as they are, I don't know if the government of Guyana needs to be messing around with things that could cause a split between the PPP and this administration. And something happening to Miss Atwell could create such a split. Right? Because this could turn into an international incident, a human rights incident, a women's right incident. It can happen very quickly. And so that's something that we don't need to see. That's something that no one needs to see. So I'm hoping that PPP isn't angling for that, because if that's the case, then they're playing with fire. And it's not the time to be playing with that type of fire when they're facing a crazy man in Maduro right next door. This is not the time for that.
Absolutely. Elections around the corner. The PPP is very scared indeed. I've been reading some of the comments there, and let us go back to the Mohammeds. U.S. probing Exxon contracting Guyana for smuggling drugs, gold, and so forth and so on. Not so long ago, Barrett Jack Dale, the butcher from Unity, at his so-called press conference, mentioned the possibility certain folks getting paid by the Mohammeds who have been sanctioned. And it was surprising that that was coming from, well, not really surprising, but it's coming from this guy of all person. They have benefited so much from the Mohammeds, billions and billions of dollars they gave them in contracts. And in return, the Mohammeds gave them hundreds of millions in donation for campaign, elections, gave them vehicles and all manner of things. That is known to U.S. law enforcement, or should not be anything strange, I should say, to U.S. law enforcement agencies. Do you think they will act because the corrupt PPP regime say that Melissa Atwell and maybe others are being financed by the Mohammeds? Hence the reason for the U.S. to act in this manner?
I'm thinking it has to be something like that, something really big. It can't be something small, because if it's something small, like I said, then you're risking an international incident. I know some people are saying that, oh, Trump doesn't care about human rights. He doesn't care if someone, is deported and they're murdered, and then, like, he doesn't care. But I'm telling you, he will care. International incident. Okay, if it becomes a situation where it turns out that our government did something that wasn't right in deporting her, and knowingly put her in the hands of people that we had, pretty good knowledge, that would kill her, right? Like that the story writes itself and it gets out of hand. And Trump may not care about human rights, but I'm telling you, such a situation is that. And so you don't want to go into a situation like that, where you don't want to set up a situation on something small where potentially you can create an international incident that forces countries to push away from each other, right? You don't want to do that off of something simple. So to me, I think this is something really, really major, something really, really big. It has to be, because if it's not huge, then what we're looking at is like schoolyard bully stuff on an international stage, and during a time where there could be war, which, if that's the case, that's a really sad turn of events for Guyana, and the elections are right around the corner. I just don't think a party like the PPP wants to go into elections looking petty like that. That's my opinion, but maybe they don't care. I think not so. I think they probably have some serious charges, some serious things that they're saying is going on. I think there may be some type of financing stuff going on that our government's looking at. And so this could be a really big deal. And so that's why I'm saying all speculation. We don't really know what's happening, right? There are more questions than there are answers. But the reality is that looking at it, it looks like this is a major deal, and it's probably dealing with some type of financing, is what it looks like to me.
All speculations indeed. And I'm just saying, if I have to believe anybody or not to believe anybody, is the government. How can you believe guys who have billions of dollars in China, who are human rights violators, who are in bed with dictators, suck up terrorist organizations? The evidence is there. You were tracking a story for many years. Sukri Juman, is it? Outed that Al Qaeda vagabond that was hiding in Guyana, got a Guyanese passport under the PPP regime. These vagabonds in the PPP regime are notorious for these things. Now, were I on the case or to assist with her situation there, I would pull all of those articles with PPP folks saying what they're going to do, sexual things they're going to do with her when she returns to Guyana. She's going to be dead. Of course, she's going to be killed. And the fact that even the so-called vice president of Guyana taunts her and others every single week at his so-called press conference. Who can get a fair trial under those circumstances? Who can basically be safe upon their return to such an environment, such lives in danger? The fact that if Melly Mel is to be in danger, there will be no place to house her, no prison to put her in, and nowhere for her to live and to be safe. They will, in my opinion, and based on the experience of the past experience and evidence under the PPP regime, where opponents of this PPP regime have been killed, they have been slaughtered. Under the PPP regime, even a serving minister of their own government was assassinated along with other members of his family, and not a single investigation. All manner of things. People flew out of Guyana. They fled the country as a result of being persecuted. We had businesses that was that was actually burnt to the ground because of their political affiliation and all manner of things happening under the PPP regime. Having described those sort of things, it is unsafe. And I don't think that any judge is going to agree in sending Melly Mel back to Guyana. I would be surprised if that happens. And that is why her lawyer or lawyers need to argue a strong case and present the evidence. There are lots and lots of evidence out there that can be presented to the court. Not just Jack Dave saying, not just what Irfan Ali has said, not just what scores of so-called ministers of the government have said. Of course, she has put out things out there that caught their attention, that raised their bumps. Whether we agree with the way she did it or not is irrelevant. But the fact that you have very powerful people, including the Attorney General and others who are after her, becomes questionable. Now, like you have said, we don't know the real circumstances. We don't know the real reason. It could be other stuff. And so I don't want to entertain the other stuff. At least I refuse to entertain the other stuff. But what is dangerous is sending her back to Guyana at this time. How much is it to intimidate not just her, but others from speaking out and exposing those vagabonds in Guyana? Tom?
Well, that's the thing, and people, I've said it over and over, there has to be at some point in time some type of real media infrastructure set up so that people like Melissa Atwell, Melly Mel, they can be protected within that infrastructure, right? Because in order for any society or any government or any country to be able to thrive, the people have to be able to get information on what is going on. And that information has to be unbiased and it has to be presented in a professional way, right? And the only way to do that is to have a strong media. Okay, so Melly Mel is a member of that media, basically, right? But it's not a strong media because the infrastructure is very, very weak. And so people like her are left out on their own to try to create a way to cover the news and to let the people of the world know what's happening in Guyana, right? Well, that causes these guys to get really mad. And instead of them responding in a way that a first world government will respond, they look to be responding in a way that a third world government would respond. And so that's just what we're having a situation now where, like I've said before, Guyana has gone from a backwater country now to a country on the world stage. And when you're on the world stage, you have to operate like you belong there. And going after someone who's essentially within your journalist core and going after them for being, anti who you are as a party, that just doesn't fly. Okay, so hopefully that is not the case of what's going on right now. But the only reason why I keep it's not the case because of the history of PPP country still going on right now. Option because there's a history of abuse of human rights, abuse of women's rights, abuse of children's rights in the nation, because there's a long history of it and not been done to change that, right? We have to look at people like Melissa Atwell and we have to say, our court system, our media, we have to look at her and give her the benefit of the doubt a little bit because you're dealing with such a corrupt institution on the other side in the government of Guyana.
Corrupt institution indeed, and the court will look at that as all basis of the evidence presented. And I do hope whoever her lawyer or lawyers are, that they have a strong case and that they are working on that presentation to the judge, because I suspect that she will be seen by a judge maybe sometime next week. But that's just my opinion, mind you. But all of the different rumors, oh, she's on her way back to Guyana, oh, she has been sent back, oh, it's this, oh, it is that, oh, I can't blame people for that, especially when you're not hearing much. But some folks with some ridiculous rumors, sometimes I wonder if they have sisters, if they have daughters, if they have mothers, if they have grandmothers. Sometimes I just wonder. For those of you, uh, hear my opinion, as I've been sharing all along, I'm optimistic in this case. And I'm optimistic that Melissa Atwell will be released from that immigration detention center, and pretty soon, as long as she has competent lawyers who understand what they're doing, especially when it comes to cases such as the human rights cases. They can build a very strong human rights case in favor of Melissa Atwell to substantiate that by saying, were she to be sent back to Guyana, she will be killed. There is no if, ands, or buts about that. The PPP has argued that as well. They felt that people like Ashni Singh, when he was in Dubai, he had a nice, comfy job, that he wasn't safe in Guyana. They also said that Brassington, who was head of NISL, wasn't safe back in Guyana. They have argued all these different things. Well, the opposition right now, regardless of how they feel about Melissa Atwell, they should argue that Melissa Atwell is unsafe, will be unsafe. She will be possibly killed were she to be sent back to Guyana. It's a strong case, and no judge, man or woman, will agree in sending her back to Guyana. Because were she to be sent back to Guyana, even after making all of those complaints and giving evidence and real reasons why, were she to be sent back, and let's say the next day she is killed in front of Freedom House like Donna McKinnon and maybe others, then who is to be blamed? The American judge. All the judges are presented with the evidence so they can weigh the evidence, and the evidence is in favor of Melissa Atwell. Hence my reason for saying, Tom, before we wrap up, hence my reason for saying that I am not certain that Melissa Atwell will be sent back to Guyana. In fact, my opinion again, I believe that she will be released on some sort of a bond. That can only happen if she has competent lawyers. Mr. Thomas Atwell, your closing remarks, please, sir. And again, my apologies for taking up much of that time, because this human rights violations and people who are being persecuted, and I see persecution here based on what I'm seeing. And now I don't know what's behind the scene, but I can just say that I'm seeing persecution on the part of the corrupt PPP regime. They are notorious for that, mind you. Your closing remarks, please, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, well, so we're living history right now, and this could turn out to be a pretty big international incident, depending on how it goes. So we need to look at it closely. You're right; she needs to have good attorneys representing her, but at the end of the day, our government needs to understand that sending anyone down to Guyana is risking their lives, because it's not a safe country to send people down to, especially people who are considered troublemakers by the PPP. If you send a person down there, especially if it's a woman, it's really bad things will happen to them, more than likely, right? So our government needs to understand that, regardless of what type of representation she has. And we need to know that we have to look at this carefully, and we have to handle this carefully, because if we're not careful and something happens and this becomes an international incident, then it hurts our ability to get involved with bigger issues in the region, like Venezuela trying to take over land, right? So we have big issues at hand here. We have much bigger things we are dealing with, like gold smuggling, drug smuggling, weapon smuggling, human slavery happening in the region. We've got war that could be breaking out soon. So these are big issues. We don't need something like a human rights issue to get in the middle of all of that right now. We really don't. So that's how I see it. If anyone from our government's watching or paying attention, this is one of those things where it's probably better to allow her to stay here and let things blow over in Guyana, however it's going to go, rather than send her down there and get her in the middle of something that could wind up hurting her or ending her life, and this become an international incident that makes it so that it makes it harder for all of us to work together on the bigger issues like Venezuela.
Well said, Tom Anderson. I appreciate it. And let us keep hope alive, as Jesse Jackson, the Reverend Jesse Jackson says. Let's keep hope alive. And you guys out there, stay optimistic. I see hope somewhere down the line. I am an optimist and a fighter, and fighters don't quit. Fighters don't give up. Do not let this situation with Melissa Atwell, also known as Melly Mel, deter you guys from your activism. Do not let it stop you guys from doing what you're doing. Be not, or let not your heart be afraid. Is it let not your heart be, or let not your troubled, or something? I'm trying to preach tonight, but so much I want to say. Let not your heart be troubled. Continue to be optimistic. Continue to be strong. They are more with you than those who are against you. Now, they have a few of the little ones, the minions, might be running around Facebook. They might be laughing. They might be all manner of things. Oh, my gosh, They might be rejoicing right now in some rum shop, some sort of strip club, wherever they might be rejoicing. Remember, it may visit your doorstep soon. And now, not everything Melissa Atwell says that I agree with. In a democracy, we agree to disagree. Not every time her strategy is something that I agree with. But at the end, and I guess it's vice versa too, Tom, you're on this program. Not everything I say you agree with. And not everything, this is the first time I'm letting you know, Tom, not everything you say. There's some things that I'm like, okay, Tom, okay. And I know it's vice versa too. It's democracy, and a healthy democracy, we can all agree to disagree. My strategy might not be a strategy that some of you agree with all the time, but in a democracy. And Melissa Atwell deserves that respect in a democracy. I don't know what's going on, but we can speculate. But we will keep digging behind the scene, Tom, and we will unearth lots of things maybe. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you. Take care.
Appreciate it. As always, we appreciate Tom Anderson as well. Follow him. He has his, he writes a lot too. Follow him, guys, and keep hope alive, guys. Keep hope alive. Do not allow this to deter you guys. I've been in the trenches for so many years with these guys, threatened with guns and all manner of things from PPP thugs, all sort of things. Do not allow this to deter you from anything. Just be safe in every way, shape, and form. But do not allow individuals, right? Dr. Isaac Davis, Aluta, continue, right? Do not allow vagabonds to brainwash you guys, and do not allow individuals to use you guys maybe for a couple dollars. I'm not painting all of you with the same brush, but you guys know what I'm saying. It can get you in trouble, and not only trouble, it can get you in a heck of a lot of trouble. So be careful with certain individuals. And now, speaking of certain individuals, what happened to that sanctioned woman, the permanent secretary who Jack Deere and all these people are close to right now? That sanctioned individual, Thomas May, whatever, protected by the PPP regime. And it is my understanding, mind you, she is still being paid by taxpayers' dollars. What's happening there? My name is Mark Benshaw. I'll be back next Monday. Same place, same time, right here on 107.1 FM, the radio station that's being starved by the PPP regime, the radio station that's being discriminated by the corrupt PPP regime. I just want to remind you guys of that, right? And so, Melly Mel, wherever you are, prayers, lots and lots of prayers are with you. Lots of prayers are with you. For some reason, look, let me say to you guys, there are some people might go on their Facebook page and they might contaminate this whole situation with all sorts of innuendos and all sorts of frivolous opinions and so forth and so on. Be careful with those individuals. Let us wait and see. And if you don't see it on reputable news sites on Facebook, reputable, they're just a few, be careful. Some folks are very vindictive and they use social media for that. Some might argue about me on that. Some might say Melissa Atwell is vindictive. Some might say anything, but we know the truth. We know the truth. And you know those vindictive individuals on social media. We know who they are. Don't be fooled. But again, do not be used by individuals who have ulterior motives. Those individuals do not care about Guyana. Read between the lines. You can't say, as I oftentimes say, you can't say me never did a warn you. I love you guys. God bless you. Have a great rest of the night and a fantastic weekend. Wayne Caesar is on tomorrow, 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, Wayne Caesar is on. And let me just take this time out to thank all of you who wish Emma a happy birthday. I haven't done so on my personal pages yet, but we thank all of you from the bottom of our hearts. She had fun, lots and lots of fun. She's now 7, and we all love her, right? It takes a village to raise a child. Just I want the best for my kids. You want the best for your kids, and we must all want the best for our children and our neighbors' children as well. And that is why we fight for democracy, whether in the United States of America or whether Guyana or wherever you are from. Unfortunately, little kids don't have a bright future in Guyana. God bless you all. See you next week. Same place, same time. Tune in to Wayne Caesar tomorrow, 7 o'clock, right here on 107.1 FM. Now, sorry, quickly before I go, wasn't it Robeson Ben who said anybody who is pro-Venezuela will be charged? Or look at this little rattlesnake. Listen to him.
You could probably, on the maritime area, give Venezuela a channel out to the sea.
So he wants to give Venezuela a channel out to the sea. But let me say this to Robeson Ben. If you want to charge somebody with treason, charity begins at home. Start with Barrett Jackdale. See you next week. God bless you all of you. So long.
There and fabricate that. Unless you say who the person is, I can't comment on anonymous people.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Jurong?
So my relationship? Nothing. He's a tenant.
I can't take it no more. I can't take it no more. Can't take it no more. Imagine 18 hours of black. And you're telling people progress. Cost of living gone up 100%, yet you give public servant less. Mr. President, listen to the people. So just hold and you will confess. I want you try surviving on the public base. Then you're going to over stress. Cause I done fed up. You done fed up. He done fed up. She done fed up. We done fed up. The people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup. Look how evil set up. The people fed up. They don't drive no fair with the citizens. They may want the people speak out.